The kind farmer found a malnourished lynx on his land. He gave it food because he wanted to help. Many months later, the lynx did something very surprising to say thank you. Joseph was a modest farmer who inherited the farm from his dad. They had a big piece of land where they grew crops. They always worked hard, but the money they made just covered their expenses and saved a little. Joseph didn't have a family of his own, so his best friend was his loyal border collie, Leo. They were inseparable and helped each other all the time, especially at night when they finished their farm work. Farming was tough and never relaxing. During that specific year, the weather was really bad. It kept changing unpredictably, causing floods and droughts that completely destroyed the crops. But it wasn't just the farmer who suffered. The nearby forests also faced strong winds, flash floods, and forest fires. People in the local area noticed that more and more animals were coming out of hiding, searching for water and food. It was heartbreaking to witness and affected everyone in some way or another. Joseph was in a tough spot because his entire year's harvest was ruined. The local town tried to support each other as best they could, but there wasn't much to share. Joseph felt increasingly down and couldn't shake off his sadness. He tried not to dwell on the bad news about his harvest and spent more time with Leo, his loyal companion. He also tried doing things he enjoyed, but it didn't do much to improve his mood. That's when something interesting happened. It was a gloomy day when Joseph stepped out onto his farm, intending to do the usual rounds that he always did. It was important that he checked on all areas of the farm just in case something bad had happened. It was during this inspection that he came across something quite startling. At first, he thought it was just a pile of debris from a recent storm, but as he got closer, he started to see that it was, in fact, an animal. Though it was hardly moving as he advanced closer to it, he was sure it was dead. However, when he touched it, it responded. He was beyond surprised. This animal was in desperate need of help just from what Joseph could see. He knew that it hadn't eaten in a long time. It was emaciated and covered in mud to the point that he could hardly tell what kind of animal it was. Something inside of him stirred, and he knew he couldn't leave the poor creature out there to fend for itself. So, he quickly made up his mind. He bent down low and picked up the animal gently. It hardly reacted to his touch, and its resignation greatly concerned Joseph. He just hoped that he wasn't too late. He made his way back to the house with the animal in his arms, and Leo followed him, filled with curiosity. When he got home, he bathed the animal in some warm water. This is when he saw something even more startling. Right there in his bath was a lynx. He had only ever seen a lynx once before in his life. The beautiful little wild cat was definitely in need of a good meal. So, he managed to get it clean and dried its coat off. Once he managed to get a clean and dried coat off, he warmed up some milk, never losing sight of it. However, the animal was curled up on the sofa, still as ever, unresponsive to Leo's warm breath on its fur. Joseph filled a bottle and sat on the sofa next to the cat. He first poured a few drops on its lips, and when he saw that it was licking them greedily, he finally started feeding it. He hoped that if he could get enough fats and calories into the cat, it would find the energy to eat actual food. True enough, this actually worked. After 2 days of feeding the poor cat intermittently with some milk, it finally managed to get some energy to eat some spare meat Joseph had. After that, it was almost back to normal. The clearest sign of its improved health was its restlessness inside the house. It quickly became clear that Joseph needed to let the lynx back out into the wild. But he still felt a pang of sadness at the idea of saying goodbye to the pretty cat. Nevertheless, that day, he let the poor animal back out into the wild. He thought that was the end of it and that he wouldn't see the lynx again. But he was very wrong. That evening, in fact, the lynx came back to his house. It stood by his door, crying for food until he let it in. Joseph gladly fed it and kept taking care of the wild cat for months. Its presence kept Joseph's spirits up and helped him get through a tough harvesting season. Then, one day, the lynx just didn't come back. Joseph felt quite abandoned by the animal, but figured it must have just gone on with its life, maybe with a mate. That spring brought back an abundance of fruit and grain, and soon enough, Joseph was too busy harvesting to think about his old friend. About a year later, though, something strange started happening in town. There seemed to be more and more bear sightings each night. People were warned to lock their doors and gates to try and prevent the big creatures from entering and raiding homes. Joseph, however, had never had a problem with bears. Leo was his own personal bouncer when it came to unwanted guests, so he quite happily left his back door open for him to run in and out of whenever he needed. However, this soon turned out to be a big mistake. Since Joseph was so confident that the bears wouldn't come near his home, he didn't pay enough attention to the movements in his backyard. It was a cool evening and Joseph was relaxing on his sofa when he heard a disturbance in the kitchen. He was sure it was Leo and didn't react, but his carelessness was about to cause some big trouble. It was only when Joseph heard another noise that he sat up and looked around. Sure enough, there at his feet was his guard dog, fast asleep. Now, Joseph began to panic a little. If Leo wasn't the source of the noise, it must be some other intruder. He could only hope it was a friendly one. But then, just a few seconds later, a massive grizzly bear walked into the living room. It was enormous, and its eyes looked red and fierce as it stared at Joseph. The poor farmer was so scared that he couldn't even breathe. He couldn't believe that there was really a bear inside his house. The bear let out a loud roar, and that's when Leo woke up. When Leo saw the danger his owner was in, he didn't waste a moment. He bravely leaped at the bear, trying to protect Joseph. However, the bear easily swatted Leo away with one of its paws. Joseph watched in terror as his loyal dog fell to the floor, looking hurt. He knew that he might be the bear's next target. All he could think to do was to shout as loudly as he could, hoping to scare the bear away. But instead of getting scared, the bear seemed to get even angrier. It stood up on its hind legs, getting ready to attack Joseph. As the farmer moved quickly to hide behind the sofa and protect himself, something unexpected happened. Instead of the bear attacking him, there was a lot of noise and growling. When he looked to see what was going on, he saw a wildcat and Leo, his dog, teaming up to fight the bear. It was the lynx that Joseph had helped a year ago. It had returned to protect him. The lynx and Leo working together were too much for the bear to handle. Instead of trying to fight them, the bear decided it was better to run away, and that's exactly what it did. Joseph couldn't believe his luck. Thanks to the lynx, he and Leo were both safe. The lynx hadn't forgotten the kindness Joseph showed it when it was in need, and in some way, it was repaying Joseph for his help. It's a wonderful story that shows that acts of kindness are never forgotten or wasted. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you like this story. Please give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.